Hi, this is Max Majeski with MJM Law Office. Today I'm going to be talking about administrative license suspensions. Now this is a situation where if you got a DUI, maybe you were given a 90 or 1 year or some other license suspension, it would look something like this. You would have been given a yellow sheet of paper that's called the Implied Consent Combined Report, and that's going to be your administrative suspension done by Department of Motor Vehicles for either failing or refusing a breath test. It's important to understand that this is a completely separate suspension from what you might get if you go to court and were to be convicted on a DUI. In that case, you'd have a minimum 1 year suspension up to potentially 3 years or lifetime revocation, depending on your history of DUIs. So this video is about this administrative suspension, which will be shown in the Implied Consent Combined Report. So the first thing to understand is that when you're arrested for DUI, and if you had an Oregon driver's license, they would have taken that from you. They will give you a slip of paper. It's gonna look something like this, but it's a yellow sheet of paper, and that's gonna be your temporary interim driving permit. That is gonna allow you to drive around for the next 30 days. So important to understand, this administrative suspension does not start the day that you're arrested. It starts 30 days from that date, and then it would go into effect depending on whether they check the box 90 days or 1 year, depending on if you refused. It would be a minimum 1 year. If you fail a breath test and it's the first time, it would be 90 days. If you fail a breath test and you had failed one prior, within a certain time frame, then that would be a 1 year suspension. And if you have a commercial driver's license, there's very serious additional restrictions that would apply, and you would definitely want to talk to an attorney in that situation. So you've probably been browsing on the internet and seen something about you have 10 days, you have 10 days to request a hearing. Don't lose your license. And so that's what this is about. These instructions are on this Implied Consent Combined Report down at the bottom, and it explains how you or your attorney can go online and request a hearing to challenge the validity of this license suspension. And that is what you just have 10 days to do. And then the timing is that then the Office of Administrative Hearings will have a hearing, and that's going to occur before your suspension goes into effect, so that administrative law judge can issue a written opinion as to whether this suspension is going to be upheld, and you'll know that before that 30-day window before this suspension goes into effect. So how do we beat these hearings? Well, there's a few ways. You've probably heard one of the most common ways is if the officer just doesn't show up. And so that's why if you're requesting this hearing on your own, you want to make sure to check the box on that request that you want to have an in-person hearing. Otherwise, it's going to be a telephonic hearing. It's a lot easier for an officer to show up if it's just a telephonic hearing and they have to jump on the phone. If it's an in-person hearing, the officer will be subpoenaed to be at that hearing, but for some, whatever reason, sometimes they don't show up. If they're not there within 15 minutes of that scheduled hearing time and you are there or your attorney is there for you, then you will prevail, you'll win that hearing. So that's one way. Also, technical issues with the form itself. Carefully review this Implied Consent Combined Report. If the boxes are not checked, for example, say it doesn't check if it's a 90-day or 1 year suspension, well, that doesn't give you proper notice. That would be a reason to overturn the suspension. In that situation, they might try to reissue you an amended ICCR, so you just have to be aware of that. Basically, the way the hearing will work, and really the main purpose of having one of these hearings, especially if you have a DUI case that might go to trial, is to build a transcript. And that's what we're going to do, is we have an opportunity to question the officer under oath, get all those answers, we get a recording of that hearing, and then in any future hearings that we have in court, we can impeach that officer with that information, and we know how he's going to testify. So that's a huge benefit of holding this hearing. And the other benefits are that you might win on the hearing. So other reasons you might win, well, there's a lot of technical issues that we would go through at the hearing. The officer is going to have to talk about how he developed the probable cause to stop you in the first place for a traffic violation or for DUI, and then how he had probable cause to arrest you for the DUI, and then that he went through all the procedures correctly when he took you back to the station, brought you into the intoxilyzer room and took your breath sample, such as the 15-minute observation period. Was he observing you? Did he document all of that in the checklist? So there's a variety of things, and also, was the machine properly calibrated? Was his certification up to current, things like that? And we kind of walk through everything at the hearing to try to find any reason that there might be to challenge the validity of this license suspension. So that's kind of the overview. If you have any questions or would like assistance on a DUI or a DMV license suspension hearing, give us a call. We're here to help you 24 hours a day, and we'd love to talk to you. Thank you.